Hello.
What's happening?
How you doing?
I'm feeling great.
Yeah, good. What's new with you?
So yeah, like it's just been like, I think I told you a couple weeks ago that I started like morning pages. You never came across morning pages ever, huh? Well, so basically, I mean, it's like the idea is you're supposed to longhand write out like 3 pages every day.
3 pages. That sounds like
it's not bad. I mean, I type a lot faster and I feel more comfortable on a keyboard. So I just type.
Yep.
But what ended up happening, so this week I just started doing, from 10 a.m. until 1 p.m. I'm sitting and I'm typing. That's it. Like, and if I have to leave, like I've been leaving the house to go do it.
Yeah.
Just make myself do it. Just starting to build a muscle, right?
Yep.
And what ends up being like a whole channeling session, because what's flowing stops being from here.
Yep, totally.
It's really exciting. Yeah.
And do you start with an intent? So like, what does the process look like? So do you just sit down with your journal and where do you go? Like,
I don't know what to type. You know, I'm typing whatever's popping in. I wonder what I should do. It doesn't matter. It's just getting that muscle built.
Yep.
Like I think I told you too, like I was doing push-ups, like easy sets of push-ups. That's what this feels like. It feels like there's not a who knows what it's going to be, but by the end you feel like you've done something. It feels good the whole way through. You feel like you've done something. Eventually something amazing is going to pop up. Like there's a real trust process in it.
Cool.
Yeah.
And where did you learn about this? Where does this come from? This process?
Well,
and good morning, everybody who's tuned in. It's nice to have you guys here with us. Sorry, keep going. I figure we should acknowledge our audience a little bit.
So there's, I don't know, there was a book about morning pages.
Yep.
Okay, so I did that, and then it just felt really good. Like I like the idea of just doing nothing, just doing for the sake of doing, you know, kind of just building a habit. Totally. It feels really good. So yeah, it was I don't know, like lots of really creative ideas. I thought about the Abraham formula the other day. Okay. Right. Have you ever thought, like, could you get up on stage and do like a 15-minute Abraham segment? You know, she very much has like a formula.
Well, she doesn't always do it. So sometimes she'll go up and she'll just say, okay, what do you guys want to know? Right. And knowing how I make channels, like for Esther, because they both do it the same way, it's like they just connect. So like with me, Nick will connect. And sometimes they'll be like, oh, Nick, we have a specific thing we need to talk to you about today. And other times I'll connect and they'll be like, okay, Nick, prompt us with a question. What do you want to know?
Yeah.
Right. So I think with Esther, it's not like she's coming up with the content. She's just allowing to flow through what it is that audience is calibrated to with source and what source wants to deliver based on that audience.
I think though, if she asks a question, the person asks a question, the person in the hot seat asks a question, she gives them X amount of seconds. It's very structured, actually.
Oh, is it really?
I mean, whether she knows it or not, it's very, very, very structured, because like I've done so many animations that you know exactly when she's going to cut them off and take over. She does a similar thing just like you. She explains the process and tells the whole thing. But then about like 7, 8 minutes in, then comes the story. Okay. And there's always a story connected to it,
Yep.
you know? And I think that that's a lot of times, like, I feel like I leave out like that progression, because you want to just explain the answer. But then she, like I said, 7 minutes, she's like, here you go. Esther one time, you know, Esther and Jerry one time were doing this.
The stories aspect is like the best part. Like for me, I've been scripting some new emails, and one of the emails I was talking about how there's specific blocks that people carry that don't even allow them to get to the point where they allow themselves to work through what they need to work through to have their breakthroughs.
Okay.
So for example, like support. So some people being supported, allowing support, being vulnerable is not safe. So if you've got blocks in the context of relationships, but you've got blocks even before that point around not allowing yourself to be supported by me or to sign up for my programs or be supported by somebody else, then the blocks that prevent support are even preventing you from moving forward. And the analogy that I used in this email that I scripted was my kids. Right?
Okay.
I've got one kid, and it's not something I ever reflected on very much, but I've got, one of my kids is very teachable, always looking to learn, always wanting to know, my advice and how to apply it. And the other kid is just like total Taurus, like, nope, my way or the highway. Tell me what to do. If you tell me what to do, I want to do the opposite just because that's how I am. Right.
Fun.
So, that's two classic examples of, what reality is like when you're allowing support. And there's no right way or wrong way of doing it. Right. Reality is an exploration. And as Abraham-Hicks says, physical reality or life experience is the best teacher. But again, it's like using that analogy and that story of my kids is I love using that to convey that message because it makes so much sense.
When you say there's no right or wrong way, of course. But what if there's a right or wrong way for you? What if there's like a really, 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 really good way for you?
There's no right or wrong way. There is an easy way and a hard way.
Right.
Right. And it's like, if I've spent years being a mechanic and both my kids want to learn how to put an engine together and I can teach them, and one of them wants to learn from me and the other one wants to figure it out on their own.
Right.
Well, one of those paths is a hell of a lot easier than the other one.
Well, and so I think that's what a lot of my whole process is finding out. At first I felt bad because I was leaving the house. I haven't left the house in like, I don't know, years.
You're a hermit living in a cave.
I'm an introvert and I like being home, and that's it. Well, I think I asked you, right? The idea of like where you get your energy from. Do you get it from people? Do you get it from being out and about? Or do you get it from reading a book? Or do you get it from watching a movie? Do you get it from typing out pages to yourself?
That's a good question to ask. Yeah. And I would say for me specifically, it's nature.
Right.
It's like lately I've been watching on YouTube these travel videos of people doing overlanding. And like it looks amazing. Like to hop in your 4x4 vehicle and drive out in the middle of nowhere where there's nobody around and flick a switch on the roof of your car or your RV and your tent pops up. Like it just, like, to me, that feels so energizing. Right.
That's interesting though, because don't you also feel that same energy from your Wednesday sessions?
It's different. So like for me, I would say in my Tuesday sessions with the Breakthrough Club, that's where I'm in my prime, because for me, I think one of my best skills is troubleshooting.
Okay.
Right. And we can call it spiritual troubleshooting if you want. But for me, like it comes so easily and so naturally to just help people identify exactly what their block is and shift them through it. We had something amazing that came through yesterday when I was talking with somebody, and I forget what the word was. Not clarity, not constraint. If anybody here was on yesterday's call, what was the bucket analogy? What was the word on the bucket? I don't remember. Drop it in the chat window if you were there.
But so anyway, what are you trying to say? Like that you're dropping things in buckets, huh?
Well, what it was that she came up with this word.
Okay.
It wasn't clarity. It was like, well, let's use clarity for example's sake. Oh, here, I can look it up on my computer. Give me certainty. Thank you, Vanessa. Certainty.
Okay.
So the lady in the hot seat, she said, I've got this situation and I'm lacking certainty. Right. And what came through was like, you only lack certainty because you're not creating it.
Okay.
Right. So the visual that I got was a bucket with the label certainty on it. So I said, what you need to do is you don't wait for certainty. You don't let reality create the certainty. You are the creator of your reality. You have to create the certainty. So I told her to fill the bucket with certainty, right? And for her, she was looking for a house. So I said, okay, give me some statements that feel like certainty. And I started her off with the first one. I said, the perfect house is waiting for me around the corner. And she said, oh yeah, that feels good. That feels like certainty. I said, put it in the bucket. Right.
Okay.
And then we did 5 or 6 or 8, or I don't remember how many we did, but we filled her bucket with that feeling of certainty. Right. And that's vibrational calibration at its best. But for me, the best stuff always comes through when there's somebody else that's prompting a question.
Okay. Yeah. Right? Yeah. You get some energy from others. I mean, typically you're the one reaching out to me. It's great. It's like you like interacting. It's really wonderful. And I think that should be allowed. Like, I think a big part of, and maybe a lot of law of attraction is saying it's this way, right? But what if you're a completely different person than the majority of the audience?
But there's no one way, right? So that's a mind that's a mistake. Our mind,
and finding what works for me.
Abraham-Hicks says you're always on the path.
Okay.
Right? You can't get off the path. Right? And what people seem to forget, and I talked about this on the call last night too, is that it's a vibrational path. And when you bump up against, let's call it a brick wall or a pothole or a speed bump or any kind of piece of contrast, doesn't mean you made a bad decision, doesn't mean you took a wrong turn, doesn't mean you did the wrong thing. Literally, that piece of contrast is there on purpose. It's there because there is a vibrational gap that you need to bridge. And that's why being in the present is so important, because it's by being in the present that you can allow yourself to kind of tune in and process that contrast so that you can continue moving down that road. When reality isn't changing, when you're stuck, it's because you're bumping up against this speed bump and you keep going around in circles around it. And you can't keep going down that road until that vibrational gap is bridged, right? So it's because you're not getting out of the circumstance what it is you're supposed to be getting out of to have that vibrational shift.
And so, like, do you want to talk about some of the remote viewing stuff here?
Yeah, totally.
All right. So, yeah, I don't even know how much the audience knows about it. Like, so if you want to.
Yeah, I've done remote viewing with the collective once or twice, or with the membership communities. So people who don't know what remote viewing is, in the late 70s, early 80s, the CIA had a project called Project Stargate. And it was a protocol-driven psychic process to do psychic work to spy on, the Russians and whoever else. This protocol was developed by a couple of guys. One of the 2 guys was named Russell Targ. He was also a pioneer in laser technology, really smart guy. So I would say I spent 5-ish years playing with, practicing remote viewing. And we talked about it a little bit on the call last week, I think. So for fun this week, I said, hey, Nick, send me a tasking. Here's how I want you to do it. And we're going to try to predict the outcome of a sports game. And we did it. And the target, you picked the target representing the winning team. And I sent you my viewing. It was pretty spot on.
Yep, it was right on.
And it accurately predicted the winner of the game.
Yeah.
So that was kind of your first intro to experiencing remote viewing, right?
Yeah. I mean, we've done it before, but what I've learned before is I'm not good.
But nobody's good to start off, right?
Okay.
This is about intuitive development. It's
Okay.
I've done it a number of times with my kids. My kids are amazing at it, right? And I use it as kind of a training process to start to learn how to decode vibration.
And so the following day, I'm too embarrassed to do it with you at first. But I did it with my wife, and
Yep.
and we did it over and over and over and over and over again. And I learned a lot. Like so I asked you specifically, I said, well, okay, how do you get in the state? And you said, you throw on music, you sit over here, you throw on music, and however long it takes, that's what. So I put on headphones, just some soft piano music. It was too much. It was like, I couldn't concentrate. And then I found white noise, and that was it. Like I had to I was stuck, right? I felt that, and it's like, no, I have to try this way. I have to try this way. Like, I know it works for you.
Yep.
But it was too much for my brain. I needed like nothingness or some, because there was like a hub, my kids are running around. So nothingness doesn't exist in the house. But with the music, I could start to feel things. And then, so I know a lot of times, so what you would write down were like colors or it's all senses stuff. It's like this, maybe it feels smooth, or maybe it is silver, all the senses. And so I did that at first. Didn't work for me. Like I get more of a felt sense. Like I was getting more of a felt sense. I was like, oh, it feels like it's like blue did pop up.
Yeah,
Blue would pop up.
That's how it works for me. So for me, the best way to describe it is like, if you had a bowl of soup.
Okay, yeah, sure.
And you were to smell that bowl of soup and you'd be like, I think I'm picking up on oregano and cinnamon and cardamom. It's like you're sensing. To me, it feels very similar, but you're sensing, you're probing for like data. So it's like, when you look at the target number, it's like, what colors do I sense? What smells do I sense? What textures do I sense? What shapes do I sense? That's kind of how I work through the target.
And so I would be like, well, like my logical brain would take over, even if I didn't want it to. And it would be like, okay, what's blue in the room? What could she possibly be doing? I was trying too analytical.
And that's what that AOL column is for.
Okay.
So what you do is when the mind, because the mind's going to want to start making guesses.
Yes.
Right. And you want to discredit that because those guesses aren't coming from the same place as the true data. So by writing those guesses down in that AOL column, which stands for analytical overlay, what happens is it's like you satisfy the mind because the mind is like, oh, good. He acknowledged the word skateboard. I can move on now and stop nagging him about it.
Ah, that's cool.
Did you notice? So you did a lot of sessions in one day?
I did it 2 days in a row.
Okay.
And what I eventually, again, I felt like I haven't gotten any of these right. I don't feel like maybe, who knows, maybe that's not my role in that collective.
Did you notice though? Did you notice bleed between your sessions? And what I mean by that is if you do sessions too close together, the data for one session might be what matched the session you just did or the one that you're about to do.
That's what happened. That's what happened. I was a step ahead.
Yeah, that's totally a common, well-known thing. So it's really important to disconnect from the stream after your session is done. And like really to take, I would never, I used to do 5 sessions a day. And I would never do a session like back to back because of that bleed issue.
Yeah. For me, it's about figuring out what works. Always.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And so it was exciting, even the bleed through, like I didn't even think about that until you mentioned it right now. But that's exciting. Like it was some amount of information. And like a big one was like, okay, you got to get out of the house. You can't, I keep thinking I can do stuff from home because I created Animated Abraham from home, but it was a different environment back in the day. The kids were at school. There wasn't a third, I mean, it's a big difference, and so I've been getting away and I feel bad about that, but I got to get over it. And then, so much good, so much better. It works for me. Like what works for me. Awesome. And your little tasking thing, it made a big difference. George Clooney.
Interesting. Yeah. There's a movie about, it's very, very loosely based. What was it? Men Who Stare at Goats. That was loosely based on Project Stargate, the CIA program.
Yeah. So that's the idea. It's like, what do do they go over what can be done with it
in the movie?
Yeah.
Actually, there's a documentary that's much better. It was on Amazon Prime. Let me look it up.
Okay.
Russell Targ, I think, was in it.
And they show sessions and all that stuff.
Oh yeah.
Okay, cool.
I think, or they explain how it works, or it's called Third Eye Spies.
Okay.
And it's really good.
And they're like finding missing people. Is that what they're mostly doing, or?
I don't remember. A lot of people use it for finding missing people. I think the U.S. government was using it. I think the the U.S. government was using it for like identifying like Russian
silos,
infrastructures and stuff like that. Yeah.
Where's the news?
There's books about it. With all of the CIA documents are now declassified, or at least a good portion of them. You can find them online. It's really fascinating stuff.
Well, it's tantalizing, right? Because if you can start predicting the future, how exciting,
Yeah, and it's not dominantly used for predicting the future. It's more for like lost people or missing persons or different things like that.
We were betting on the NFL, so
yeah.
Well, so and you were just talking about like you want to have like a bunch of people to do it.
Yeah, I mean, if we wanted to, we could form a team. I mean, there's people who do this. There's paid contractors who do remote viewing work.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, it's kind of underground. But there's people who are massively good at it, who are legitimately paid contractors.
And they'll find like, where's my daughter?
The contractors, it's more about they're hired by businesses kind of to like espionage type purposes.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, like I couldn't figure it out. My brain was stuck at how much money I could make from it, type thing.
Yeah.
But then, well, I guess it did transition away from that, and it did. It became like what works for me, and maybe that is like a more of a channeling sessions, like because right after this, I'll go do it and start ramping up those, because I don't think I have those senses. Like they're not dominant.
Well, for me, there's all the different clairs, right? Clairaudient, clairvisual, all those things. And for me, I'd say 95% of my data is just like a feeling sense. So when I'm doing the live calls, like, the bucket and all this stuff, like it's just like knowingness that comes through. Now, once in a while, I'll have like, an image flash or something like that. But 95% of my data is just knowingness. It's like this. It's somebody once described it who did a reading on me. They said it's like I have this super high speed internet connection that goes through me into source. And they said it's like that's like your connective pipe. And I'm sure everybody has that.
And you're saying it could be developed.
Yeah, it's a skill, right? Yeah. So if you took a bowl of soup and gave that same bowl of soup to a 3-star Michelin chef, who do you think is going to do a better job at smelling out all the ingredients?
Right, exactly.
And it's not that they have a better nose, it's that they've trained themselves by working with the smells and the foods for a lot longer than you have.
So, do people, I guess people just probably reach out to you about it, huh?
About the remote viewing?
Yeah, or you have something in mind?
I want to think about it. I've already got 2, right now I've got 3 weekly calls, 3 groups.
Yeah.
But if enough people were interested and somebody wanted to be like a dedicated tasker to create tasks every week, then maybe I would put together a group that could gather once a week to practice. And
see, that's what I'm into. I'm into the tasking part.
You are? Yeah.
Well, maybe that's like logical to me. That's like perfect. I can do that. So I didn't tell you because it didn't matter. But like, so in one, it was a selection. One was a Christmas card of my family. That represented
this was the tasking you sent me.
Right. And so one was a Christmas card that represented the San Francisco 49ers. Okay. And the other one was they were going against Green Bay. And I had a dollar bill. And you would ask, you go, because I was trying to fit them into an envelope. This was before I knew a whole lot. Anyway, I was fitting in an envelope. And so you asked, are they dramatically different? Before we start, are they dramatically different? In my eyes, they were. Okay. And then when you were some of the predictions, I was like, ooh, okay, they're not different enough, because you could kind of sort of, it wasn't enough, but like one or two versus the 7, 8, 9.
Yeah. And I had written down the word Christmas. So there was some attributes of the data that was an obvious match. If I were to redo that tasking, instead of using a $1 bill, I would have used like a 25-cent coin.
Okay. The same problems would have existed, because there was a part where it was a Star of David that you kind of sort of drew, and it was or a pyramid shape.
Yeah.
Which a coin might have too, I mean, they have those symbols. So you could draw, that's kind of where I was thinking, like a double blind experiment. But yeah, no, I could be the tasker. I'll be the taskmaster.
Cool. Yeah.
Well, because I can't do the other stuff.
Well, maybe what we can do is practice some more this week. And then how many people here would be interested in joining a remote viewing group?
Let's find out.
Just for fun. Drop a yes in the chat window.
And so, yeah, it would be, it's fun, right? Because it's not even for anything. It's just, that's just fun and quick and done. And yeah.
And I mean, it takes, for me, doing a viewing like the one that I did for you this week, it took me like 3 minutes, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, I've been doing it for a long time too. And creating a tasking, I think the challenging part about creating a tasking when you're doing the associative remote viewing is making sure you're choosing two different targets that are different enough from each other.
Yeah, I think part of the thing I think you had mentioned before was like how you would get 4 out of 5 right, 4 out of 5 right, 4 out of 5 right. And then when you put actual money onto it, somehow it dissolved. And I'm a degenerate gambler. I'm a degenerate. Give me that action. It's playoff time.
Well,
let's gamble.
I mean, and it doesn't have to be football. It can be soccer. It can be cricket. It can be any sport, right?
We've done UFC in the past.
Yeah.
And that's every weekend. I'm not betting on cricket. Well, I would bet on cricket.
Actually, okay, we'll chat after the call. We'll come up with some ideas.
What were you going to just say? You stopped yourself.
I'll spend some time reflecting on what kind of group we could create for remote viewing and what that would look like.
Yeah. Okay. It was just exciting because it didn't mean anything. And there was a to-do about it. I like that to-do about it, and I really did. I carried it on to the next project. And it was
what do you mean to do? Explain that.
I think a lot of times I just focused on how I'm feeling, and it's typically happy. And so in my life, there's just not a to-do about it. It's like, I'm already there. Let's watch a movie, or let's play with the kids, or let's send dirty texts to my wife. Like, let's have fun. Let's have the most fun, most fun.
Totally.
Right. There's no to-do. This one felt like a mission, and a development of skill. Like you said, develop your skill. And even just that I couldn't do it with the music was like,
for me,
a moment for me.
So I did, in my early spiritual seeking days, I did some shamanic trainings.
Okay.
And shamanic journeying, usually there's drumming involved. It's like a consistent dun, 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 dun. So for me, listening to, the music that I sent you, it's very rhythmic. There's no words. So it's got a similar trance-like effect. And that's why I like the music. It helps me connect to that stream.
And I think maybe as the taskmaster, recognizing that, well, it didn't work for me, maybe for half of the group that are a different, maybe they're more introverted. Maybe they would like this white noise or absolute silence, and then the idea of like feeling with your senses. So I'm like big into personality types. I love that Myers-Briggs stuff. I love it. And I was like rediscovering it all over again this weekend. And that was fun. And the idea of like, you can ask 4 different questions and find out all this, like, yeah, it's going to be different for different people. And they should have like a specified thing. Like law of attraction should be that same way. It should be, one size shouldn't fit all, is how I feel.
Right.
Where I think a lot of times it is like, here, put this shirt on. It's one size fit all.
Absolutely.
That's all. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I don't think it should be. I think it should be a little more customized. Not crazy, but there's X number of types. You should be able to ask 2 or 3 questions about yourself and say, okay, I kind of resonate with this type of thing. Like, I would be better if I did it this way. I would be more productive in this field if I did it this way.
Absolutely. And it's like with the remote viewing, I sent you the actual protocol, one of the protocols called Open CRV or Open Source CRV. And you saw how detailed, that's a 50-page document, how you go through 7 stages in your viewing process. And every stage is very different. One of them you fill in a grid. One of them you draw the target in different ways. True remote viewers who are working on a formal team, they all have to follow that protocol, right?
Okay.
And the pros will tell you that you have to follow this type of protocol in order to get the most amount of data. For me, I can just sit there, put the music on, and just jot down a whole bunch of stuff, and it's bang on target. So that's a validation of what you're saying, of like, some people might need to follow the protocol, but for other people, you might just be able to sit down and be attuned enough that you can just pick up on what's there.
Well, because we're not trying to I understand why the CIA would want a certain type. Maybe that's the best type for doing it. But for us, we're just trying to listen to source. Like, I'm trying to have a stronger connection with source. And this is my way to do it.
Yeah. Next time I channel with Anik, I'm going to ask her about the remote viewing and where's the data coming from? And am I feeling the energy at the target, or is source feeding me the data? Right. So I've got a few questions of curiosity about it.
And so I wonder, would you have to, let's say you are gambling on it, would you have a clarification question in the beginning? Like, is source into me gambling? Does source want me to make money?
I asked that question a few years ago. I said, when I was doing this remote viewing and I was doing predictive outcomes, and I could predict 80% correctly which teams are going to win. But as soon as anybody was placing wager on these predictions, it went from 80% correctly to 20% correctly. Why did that happen? Right. Is source preventing me? And they said, no, it had something to do with my beliefs at the time. So it'd be interesting for us to try it again to see what kind of results come through.
Right? Because who would know? Maybe source doesn't want you to have this, right? Maybe that's not for your journey.
I don't think source ever does or doesn't want anything.
Oh, okay.
I think because every exploration is valid, I think the end result is always with what we're lined up with.
Okay. Someone asked what personality type I am. I'm an INTJ. Do you know any of yours?
I did mine in university. It's the last time I did it. It was ENTP, but I'm sure
that's exactly what I thought. ENTP.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Okay. Yep. I don't know if I'd still be that. I don't know if it changes. I'm a lot more talkative and outgoing now than I was back in university.
So what they say is that when you're in, because anyone could be anything, right? If you stir up the certain emotion, you can be anything. I could be extroverted if I wanted to be, right? In the right situation. Okay. If you, at your core, at the moment when it matters most, maybe there's a lot of stress, you got to lift the car off the pregnant woman.
Right.
In that moment, what are you? And so I would bet you're that. I would bet you're still that. Because I've tried it in all different states.
Yeah.
And it keeps popping up the same answer. Or Enneagrams. Did you ever mess around with Enneagrams?
No.
So I'm a 5-wing 4. It's the same thing in a different way. And to me, it just validates it.
But if I look at me from 15 years ago and I ask myself, how do I want to spend the weekend? It would be hanging out with friends, playing poker, playing board games, doing things social. And now if you were to ask me, what do you want to do on the weekend? It's more internal. It's more hanging out here with Anik or hiking in the woods or, not that I don't like being around people, but I think and it might be because I spend so much time online with people and in my communities that on weekends I prefer downtime.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, there should be a rest period, of course. So it's just you're very extroverted.
Am I?
Yeah, I think so.
Interesting. Okay, maybe. I think a lot of people believe that they're introverts but aren't true introverts, and the introversion is really like social anxiety, or energetic beliefs or perspectives that they practice that drain them when they're around people. So if you're an extrovert but being around people can still make you tired and not fill you up if you got beliefs that like everybody's judging me and it's unsafe to be around people, right?
Yeah. Well, but let's break it down, because I think it's a good, good question to ask, like where you get your energy from. And I think the people, watching could let us know. Do you get it from that? Where do you get your energy? And I think that, I think somewhere inside you, because like Brianna was saying, well, sometimes there's something. Yeah, but she knows. And it's like, she wants to be around her babies. The children bring her up, and she's an extrovert. Right. So the other categories might, change that a little, and it all makes sense when you do all 4 types. But do you get your energy from others, or going out in nature and doing all that stuff, like almost like adventure, right? Like, to me, you're describing an adventure.
Like for me, so I would say like being on stage in front of an audience, giving talks, that fills me up.
Cool.
Being out in nature, hiking, playing disc golf, laying in the sun, paddleboarding, that fills me up. Spending time with my kids, depending on the mood they're in,
right,
that fills me up. So I would say like,
sure, extrovert. Even if that word doesn't exactly describe you.
Yeah,
because you're not extroverted all the time. You even said like, New Year's Eve, what were you doing? So
yeah,
you would think an extrovert would never, they would be out at a party. Yeah. Right. Energy from being alone, right? Introvert. Or even just the idea of reading a book, if that,
I've never
your thoughts.
I've never felt energized after picking up a book and reading it and putting it down.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's the best.
It might be rest. It might be restful, but never energizing.
Yeah, literally, it's like the hunt for information for me, and I found the information. I can do it now.
Right.
Yeah. Anyway, we should probably answer some questions, huh?
I mean, we're not talking about any law of attraction stuff at all.
It totally is. What are you talking about?
Yeah,
it's all source.
Yeah, it's all source.
If they don't connect, then they don't connect. But like, it's all source.
Do you guys like these conversations? What do you guys want to hear us talk about?
Because for real, it was like the gambling aspect tickled me. It was so nice. And then I took it and I was like, oh wow, I'm deepening the connection with source. It was great practice. How to be certain is the challenge for me. There's certainty again.
I mean, certainty, you have to understand that you create it all. You create all of your reality, right? So certainty, you either allow your reality to reflect something back to you that you interpret as certainty, or you create certainty and you project it into your reality. Right? So a true creator of your reality, right? Somebody who's putting on their manifestation shoes is not allowing reality to tell them what certainty is. It's about you choosing the certainty so strongly that reality reflects it back to you.
So the idea is that you get out of your head. And so with that, again, what if some people like enjoy that head process, like headspace, right?
Yeah,
and then you go over to that.
There's nothing wrong with that. Like, there's nothing wrong with being in your mental body. I mean, it's part of the human experience. Nobody's never going to be up in their head some, but your connection to source is not in your mental body. It's here. It's grounded in your physical body.
Yes. And for me, it was like I was going with the flow a little too much. And so by saying, okay, 10 to 1, I'm going to sit my ass and I'm going to type. I needed that. I needed that a little bit.
Did you ground? Did you ground first when you were
doing it? And that's what happened. And so that was part of it, right? Like I just had to like, on the way to my destination was very much a grounding sense. And like, I was like, the first day I did it, I'm like, what am I gonna? Sucks. This sucks. This is gonna suck. And then I'm like, it doesn't have to though. And like, okay, what would you want to type about, or and start flowing.
Where do you do it? Do you do it like at a library or at a coffee shop? Where do you go?
Yeah, so I played. The library was first day. Then I went to like a shopping mall parking lot type thing, where it's kind of busy all around, but then no one cares that. In this little spot there's like a Tesla charging station right next door. So that's the bulk of the energy, like the excitement.
It'd be really interesting to see how it would feel to do it again in different places, like even to go to a park and sit under a tree.
Yes.
And do it from that space to see what comes through.
Yes. And so I'm messing around with that. Yesterday I stayed home because everyone was gone, and that worked really well. I just had to stay put. Like I couldn't leave the recliner. That was my objective for the day. And so I did Brianna was really good about that too. She ended up like tasking a thing. And I was like, oh, she nailed it. Like I didn't ask for her to task anything that day.
Like a remote.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because the first day was in the kitchen. And it wasn't, and then the next day, like I felt different. It felt different. And so, I was able to connect more with.
And I would say, like, if you're doing 1 a day or 2 a day and really spacing them out, I feel like the experience is going to be different than when you try doing like 5 in an afternoon.
Yeah, but if it's exciting, why stop?
So that you can create that space between targets so you don't get the bleed through between the targets.
But that's fun too. That bleed through, the idea that you just described what a lot of people do. Now I feel connected. Now I feel like, oh, I am on the right track where. Dude, I had given it up. I was like, okay, well, it's not for me. I could be another role if asked, like I could definitely be a tasked role. Like I would do that really well, Yeah, I think a lot of I had that at a previous job. The guy wanted everyone to be the star, like, but not everyone's the star. Some people, sometimes there's the quarterback. And sometimes there's the left guard, sometimes there's just the guys that aren't ever going to touch the ball and block. I like my roles, I don't want to be put, anyway. So I had found I was like, oh, there's some people, because I watched you do it with another girl. And it's like, how do you do that? Like it was so spot on.
Do what? Sorry.
Well, when you did the remote viewing, right? You did the remote viewing and it was so spot on. And you did it with, and was like, this is really good. I mean, it's that you did it. Amazing.
Yeah. It's fun. To me, it's like a game, right? It's like, ooh, from this number. And like, I've done taskings before where the target was like GPS coordinates, right? So like, there's so many different things you can task.
Yeah, of course. I like the idea of the picture stuff. Yeah.
Okay. Pictures is the best way to practice for sure.
I'm trying to improve meditation and grounding practice. Any tips for a newbie?
So the first, when somebody says I meditate every day, the first thing I ask is, okay, so why do you meditate? What's the intention of your meditation? And oftentimes I get like this blank look of, I don't know. Right. So I think a lot of people meditate because they know they're supposed to meditate, but there's a million different purposes and reasons and ways to meditate. So I think the first thing is, what's the intention of your meditation? And then once you have your intention and know what you're actually trying to accomplish in your meditation, then it's about choosing the right meditation or the right meditative process to match that goal. Right.
Yeah.
For improving grounding. So right now I'm doing a 5-week parasympathetic activation program, which is a fancy way of saying how to get grounded. Right? Because when you're grounded in your body, that's when you're in your parasympathetic, and that's when your body is in that healing state, that rest and repair state. So the first thing I teach people is, how does being grounded in your body feel different than being in your mental body? Because a lot of people, they know there's a difference, but they don't really recognize the difference in how each of those things truly feels. So first step is knowing exactly what being grounded feels like. Second step is learning how to be consciously aware of when you are grounded and when you're not. And I would say 95% of people to 99, most people are grounded in their body, maybe like a maximum of like 5% of their day, right? So then it's consciously recognizing when you are or aren't grounded. And then after that, it's learning how to build the grounding muscle, know what it feels like, spending more time in it to build that muscle, while at the same time reducing what I call the blockers, the grounding blockers or the parasympathetic blockers, which are the things that pull you out of the grounded state, like social media, like video games, like anxiety, like stress, like pressure, like fear. So that's kind of the basic formula of what I'm teaching in that one program.
If you had to choose one, grounding or meditation, you're choosing grounding, right?
Well, grounding is a state.
Okay.
And meditation is a practice. So the purpose of your meditation could be to practice the grounded state. So I've got a meditation I think it's in School of Expansion and Breakthrough Club and this parasympathetic program. It's a 45-minute long meditation. Only the first 10 minutes is a script or is guided, but it's a meditation specifically designed to help people build their grounding muscle.
Yeah, right. That practice too, right? For me, it was grounding.
Totally.
Yeah. She wants to improve her intuition, and that comes with, right?
I would say, your intuitive connection comes from in here, right? So when I remote view, the first thing I do is ground. I mean, when I do a lot of stuff today, I had a timer going on my computer. My computer would beep. Excuse me.
Oh, goodness.
So today I've been running a program on my computer, just a YouTube video that it's a beep that goes off every 3 minutes.
Oh, okay.
And every time that timer goes off every 3 minutes, it's a reminder for me to reground.
Oh, okay. Perfect.
So I've been doing this all day to remind myself, be in your body, be in your body, be in your mindy. And if you want stronger intuition, it's about practicing your intuition. So remote viewing is a perfect practice for that. Mm-hmm. But it's also about understanding that when you're grounded and your field is expansive, that's when you're more receptive. So when I remote view, I ground, I expand, and then I receive.
Love that. Yeah, it's great. So I think that it's such an important part, right? Because I think a lot of times you just, okay, I'm grounded and I feel great, and whatever happens today happens.
Yeah.
But when you do add in a task or, okay, I'm going to try to do these things, it kind of solidifies it for me.
Well, that's living with intention. So last night in the Breakthrough Club call, the first thing I did is I said, okay, everybody, I want you to think of the one desire you want the most this year. The number one intention that you have that you want to bring into your reality. Give people a second to think about it. And then I said, okay, over the last couple of weeks, what have you been doing to actively create momentum towards that intention? Right? Because a lot of people are sitting around with their 2024 goals and they're like, I want $1 million bank account, or I want to manifest my dream job, or, whatever it is. I want the relationship. But then it doesn't go anywhere beyond that. So like people need to ask themselves, what do I need to do to bridge that gap? Right? Okay. And it's always vibrational work, right? So if you're looking for a relationship, are you exploring what it is you're practicing that's been keeping that relationship away? Because the only reason the relationship's not there is because there is a vibrational gap. The only reason the job's not there is because there's a vibrational gap. The only reason anything is not present in your reality is because there's a vibrational gap. So are you looking at your vibrational gaps? Right? People know about all of this stuff and intellectually, but most people aren't practicing it. And that's why, people who are in the Breakthrough Club keep coming back, is because they know that hey, if I want to hit my goals and my desires, I got to look at the vibrational aspects of things.
When you were talking about money and you were scripting out 300,000, 300,000, like, is that okay? Can that emphasize the gap if you're not ready for it?
But you're always ready for it.
Oh, you are. Okay.
I mean, depends on your definition of ready for it, right? So it's going to show up once you've bridged that gap. Okay. But if you're not ready for it and you can't handle it, it's not going to show up. But I think you're always ready for it. The question you want to ask is, am I ready to work through the aspects I need to work through in order to bridge the gap?
So I did like a less of a amount. Like I was like, okay, I just want to start attracting, certain amount. But okay, by March, maybe it's $4,000. And like, so then I said, January, I want to make $1, $1 this month.
Okay.
Okay. And then it December was 12,000. It wasn't 300,000. It wasn't crazy. It felt reasonable. So there didn't feel like a big gap for me.
Yeah.
But am I limiting things by, it wasn't,
instead of saying I want, I don't know, 30,000 by March.
Okay.
You have to tune into what you want now. So the best thing to do is, instead of saying 30,000 March, it's just by sitting down with your journal and just write down, pen on paper, 30,000, 30,000, 30,000. It feels so good to have 30,000.
Yes.
I love 30,000. 30,000 is such a beautiful number. And then work your way into feeling 30,000 now, right? Picture your certainty bucket.
Okay.
Right? And like, ooh, I'm dropping 30,000 into my certainty bucket. I can feel the presence of 30,000 in my certainty bucket.
What about if you didn't want to put a number on it and you just wanted to feel the income? Like I said, $1 feels just as good because it's okay. It came to me. $1 came to me.
So are you saying, wait, back up. Are you saying $1 feels just as good as $30,000?
Yes. Income. Yes. It's attracting income.
Okay. So we're not talking about calibrating to specific dollars. We're talking about calibrating to receptivity. Okay.
Yeah, I'm asking because I think that I have done the $30,000 in the past. I've done that.
Here's what I would do from that vantage point is like, ooh, I love all these things that are coming at me.
Yes.
I love how I just got free coffee in the mail. Mm-hmm. I love how, so it's you're talking about receptivity. So make it about not just money, but about all of the things.
Okay. And it happened like 20 minutes later. I saved $40 a month on my cable bill, things like that. That felt just as good. Right.
Good. Yeah.
So, okay. So with the money amount, like, how is that different then? You're saying that's different in some way? Because you're still receiving $300,000.
Yeah, but to me, like, if I think purely of income and receiving income, versus like a set amount like $30,000, to me, like, income feels like it's like a stream.
Yes.
Where $30,000 is like one thing.
Okay.
Like to me, I feel a vibrational difference between the two. It might be sudden.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. No, I want that stream. I'm looking for good things. Okay. Oops. I get excited before my audition, and that pulls me out of being grounded. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Also, it's been a bit challenging to let go of each audition and moving on to the next.
So I would say like when that excitement hits, like this is where building the grounding muscle becomes more of a practice to develop that muscle. And for me, that's why I set that timer today to go off every 3 minutes, because it's like every time that alarm beeps at the 3-minute mark, I drop back in, I flex that muscle, and that muscle's getting bigger, right?
Yes. And you're in different states throughout that, because you might be in an excited state and then the reminder to be grounded in that excited state, right?
Yeah, I think it's the excited state can have a tendency to pull you out in the same way maybe anxiety does. But again, if you developed and practiced that muscle enough, it becomes easier to drop in.
Because like, so with a 3-minute timer, you would go through probably every state throughout your day. You're going to do it. There's going to be times where you're really hungry and you're going to be grounded. There's going to be like, right, all the states. So then you're practicing. Here's the way I react in that state. And cool. I love that. How do we remove a belief of only receiving income through a 9-to-5 job?
Yeah, I mean, that depends on what beliefs you hold. So there'd have to be a little bit more digging around that. We'd have to interface probably directly to help work through that. I would say get on the Breakthrough Club calls. If you're on the Breakthrough Club, put your hand up on the next call, and I'll make sure to get you in the hot seat and we can work through that.
I loved the certainty bucket yesterday. They loved it.
Yeah, it was one of the best processes that came through in a long time.
It's better not setting a specific timing.
Yeah, like you said, I don't know by March, but here's the thing. So like, let's talk about timing. Let's have a leading edge discussion about timing. People often ask, like, should I set a timing for my manifestation, right?
Yeah.
And here's the thing. Everything's happening here and now. So in the spirit world, there's no such thing as timing as we see it. Mm-hmm. So like, if we're talking about $30,000, it's going to show up once I'm calibrated to it. Right. Yeah. So it's like the timing aspect is irrelevant. If you can calibrate to it now, then it's going to show up now.
Right.
So it's this aspect of timing. People have this belief that, if I give it more time, then the odds of it happening is going to increase. And that's not how it works.
Yeah. I think we have a sense of continuity, right? Today we were around and tomorrow's going to come, and you can plan ahead for the future. You put money in your retirement account versus like now, now. An infinite amount of nows is like, it's almost too heady because of how much, you see yourself getting older. But what if this is all I've had? I've been this way again and again and again and again and again, looking for the right path. Is that what you mean ever by like timeline hopping?
Yeah. I mean, when you start talking about timeline hopping, it gets a little bit tricky because we hop timelines, like Bashar says, I think like billions of times per second.
Okay.
Right. So like, it's like a movie strip or those film strips where they move so fast that like you're really just looking at individual images, but because you're looking at them through them so fast, it looks like it's actually movement.
Right. And that one picture frame could be one that attracts the $300,000 if you're
vibrating. And the way I picture it in the reality context is there's all of these film strips parallel to each other. So like, if I'm on this film strip and then the $1 million is on the film strip next to it, then it's my vibrational shift that puts me on the other timeline, which is the one where I experienced the $1 million.
Right. When the grounding alarm goes off, what exactly do you do?
I drop in and ground. Right?
That's it.
It's like I flex my bicep. Right. It's just, you flex that muscle. You do that thing.
Like a feeling in your chest. You just focus on that.
Like my consciousness goes from here to here. Mm-hmm. Right. Or if I'm here, I stay here. Right. So alarm goes off. I take a conscious second to recognize, where's my consciousness? Oh, it's not where I want it to be. Plop, drop it back in.
Yeah. How would a person calibrate to something they want?
That would be a very long discussion. I would say grab a copy of Power Manifesting.
Okay. That's your book on Amazon.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's Kindle now.
Oh,
books in my hair.
Oh, say that. Yeah, you're back. Say that.
Okay.
Again.
Oh, I don't know. I love the instant gratification of Kindle. Like I hate waiting for a book to arrive by the mail. I just want it now.
Yeah, that's all good too.
Thanks. Shift to that timeline.
But here's the thing: is how do you shift timeline? again, it's by being present in your now moment and shifting the vibration that you're practicing.
Yeah. Here we go. Lately, I realized that I wobble vibrationally. When I feel excited about something, it upsets my family. It kind of paralyzes me at times. Any advice at how I can move through this energy?
Okay, let me read that again. I realize that I wobble vibrationally, like everybody does.
Sure.
When I feel excited about something and it upsets my family. So you want to work on the unsafety feeling that it's not safe to be excited.
Okay.
Right? Because if your family is upset, it's not your job, it's not your role, it's not your responsibility, right? That's their trigger, not yours. Right? So it's about working through the unsafety of other people being upset or feeling responsible for the happiness of other people.
With that, do you focus on, okay, like would you distance, maybe not distance from your family, but like distance for a bit just to get back to yourself, right? You get back to a safe space. I feel safe by myself when my family isn't judging me, right?
Yeah.
And then you can work through that process? Or would you like just dive into I'm recognizing this?
I think it's different for everybody.
Okay.
I think it's, once you have the conscious awareness that you've been triggered, some people might want to work through it in that moment. Some people might want to wait till their energies kind of stabilize and they've centered themselves to work through it and look at it. Some people might want to come to the breakthrough club and work through it there, right? Everybody's kind of different.
With other people. I had your book during the pandemic and it was one of the best years of my life.
Awesome.
Yeah. 2020 ruled. Well, that was an hour. That was great.
Yeah, that flew by.
Heck yeah.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. I'm going to do some reflecting on what a remote viewing group might look like. I'll post some details in the collective Facebook group or my mailing list or something. And again, be grounded, be present in your reality, work on your vibration, bridge the gaps. And of course, if you need help with any of that, come play in the Breakthrough Club. We got some magical things happening there. And again, today is School of Expansion Day. Anek's going to be doing some channeling again this afternoon with some hot seats as always.
Exciting. I'll be there.
Awesome. We'll see you there. Bye, everybody.
Bye.